Will you accept me as monogamous? Is there a problem with that?
They believed being silent would safeguard them, that as long as they just smiled for the cameras, no one would notice the empire disintegrating out of view. But now, the fissures are not only visible, they are unavoidable. Kody and Robyn are no longer surrounded by a family. Empty walls and unrealized dreams only. Christine has left, Janelle has flown, and even Mary has abandoned the charade. Every quilt stitched together with memory, every family night choreographed for the camera, every dinner looking wholesome. There was all a facade hiding something much darker. Control, manipulation, and a man obsessed with being watched. And just when it seemed like it was finally over, rumors began to circulate that TLC is secretly planning season 20 in 2025. But if the cameras return, what will they see? A household, or just the two most recent ones pretending there is one? Once upon a time, the Browns were a single economic unit, one agreement, one source of income, one combined pool divided across several bowl houses. But that was old news. TLC no longer pays them in tandem. The group deal is over. Every wife and husband for themselves now. And the survivors who are left behind, Kody and Robyn, are no longer basking in the privilege of mutual sacrifice. They're clinging to the residual, trying to cobble together some kind of family that's evaporated just to remain on the air. Robyn, who was previously shielded by favoritism and economic refuge, is now the target of every contrived plot twist, because there's nobody else left to shoulder the load. He isn't simply doing this emotionally, he is doing it legally. The money is reportedly filtered through Dabzark LLC now, a private company Kody uses as a middleman for what's remaining of his family earnings. TLC pays the company, and not Kody directly, and then he disperses the money from there. It's a management system that looks good, but has the stench of control. This isn't as much about bringing home the bacon anymore. It's about who gets to touch it, who gets to see it, and who finds himself shut off without even knowing he was ever getting paid. Several years ago, family was a guarantee. Robyn could keep the confessional out of it, keep her trap closed, and still get a check. No more. Every on-camera experience now somehow feels less intimate, more survival drama. They're not living truthfully. They're clinging to currentness. Well, this is not a family. This is a brand fighting for survival. The two remaining cast members are experiencing domestic harmony in a haunted house. Ex-wives, estranged children, and contracts that ended in flames years ago. Robyn used to declare she wanted plural marriage, but now, with no sister wives left to share screen with her, she's holding on to a title that's lost its relevance. And this is what they don't want you to know about how the money really comes in. Robyn's daughters weren't gently ushered into the limelight. They were shoved there. 1 week, background noise. Then they're awkwardly in the foreground during game nights and Sunday dinners that are less warm and fuzzy and more like casting calls. It has nothing to do with love. It's all about screen time. With the original wives removed and viewer interest dwindling, Robyn's children are being dragged into the mix, not to have their story told, but to bolster the show. Without them, literally nothing is left to film. And no airtime translates to no pay. Behind closed doors, it's even more fuzzy. The girls likely aren't being paid to begin with. Instead, the cash is going through Kody's Dabzark LLC, and there's total control over what gets distributed, what isn't distributed, and what's put into the expense category. Maybe the daughters get to glimpse some of that bread, but more likely their housing, vehicles, and insurance are being covered in ways that keep the cash inside Kody and Robyn's grasp. It's an old tactic, dressed in modern terms. Dependence posing as protection, control parading as support, and the cracks in fairness are glaring. Viewers learned that Leon didn't receive the same car support as others. Janelle's kids were left to scrounge, and Robyn's home lived as if in special favor. This wasn't ever about balance. It was about calculated manipulation. Remain on camera, remain in Flagstaff, play by the rules. Maybe you get help with a car, maybe you get help with college, but don't rock anything, don't make a sound, and definitely don't walk away. Robyn's girls didn't just happen. Their timing is everything. They're budget placeholders and narrative decoys. The focus isn't on their establishment. It's about underwriting Robyn's role. And when they're no longer required, they'll disappear, just like every wife before her. Because in this family, visibility isn't something you earn. It's something that gets exploited. And nothing demonstrates that more clearly than who suddenly appears on screen and who never got the chance. It was meant to be a gift, one stitched from love, decades of commitment, and the chaos of plural marriage. But the quilt Mary crafted for Kody didn't merely unravel at the seam. It took the illusion with it. That crazy quilt of t-shirts, amassed from milestones along the life they created, was decades of memory, labor, and history. And yet, over 2 decades later, it was incomplete. No border, no final stitch. Much like their marriage, frayed, forgotten, and left dangling in emotional purgatory. The quilt wasn't simply symbolic of what had been. Its absence shouted what had always been missing. Mary had poured herself into that anniversary gift during a time when she still had hope, when she still believed their love had something different. But when the quilt resurfaced on TV, it wasn't because Kody had held it dear. It wasn't because he'd cherished the sentiment. It was because he wanted the shirts back. Not the memory, not the sentiment, just the stuff. Ripped apart, sucked dry of meaning, and handed back like it had never meant anything at all. It wasn't so much cold as it was calculated. A quiet, deliberate erasure wrapped in obligatory politeness. Who asks for leftovers of a failed marriage except to try to revise the ending? Mary got the message loud and clear, and cutting it up before handing it back wasn't vindictiveness. It was self-defense. Denied any form of closure, she chose to create her own. If the quilt was never finished, then she would be the one to decide how it ended. Every piece she cut was a piece of power rewind, a refusal to let another author her path. She wasn't about to let Kody or Robyn treat their history like something to be tossed aside, because what kind of man throws away love, then attempts to recycle the components like it was another lousy deal? And what kind of woman waits around while he does it? Not with anxiety, but with anticipation. The real heartbreak wasn't the quilt. It was that it was still there, unfinished. A painful reminder that Mary had attempted once, and Kody was never truly supposed to be wrapped in what she made. When Robyn referred to the core family, it wasn't an error. It was a declaration, one that cut through decades of sacrifice with the sharp edge of a blade. She wiped out nearly a dozen children with a single sentence, reduced entire decades of shared labor, and remolded the narrative around her contracted, insulated family model. To Robyn, the core was not the mothers who raised one another's children, nor was it the adult children, scarred and shaped by their multiple lives. No, her family model consisted solely of those who still lived under her roof. Everyone else? Background noise. It was a gutting reframing. Christine and Janelle, who had spent their lives building and nurturing a messy, deeply connected family, were now being told to walk away from the very children they'd helped raise, all to preserve Robyn's illusion of unity. And for what? Another holiday dinner in Flagstaff? One that would be filled with strained laughter, stilted joy, and carefully posed scenes, as the adult kids were creating their own warmth among brothers and sisters, grandbaby, and real love. And the hypocrisy wasn't lost. Robyn wouldn't miss a holiday from her biological kids. Her adult daughters remain with her. Her son, who graduated from college, lives in an RV on the property. She understands proximity as though it's proof of love. But when Christine or Janelle prioritized time with their adult children they devoted day in and day out to raising, first, Robyn portrays that as betrayal. And that's where the truth is. Robyn's so-called core family isn't centered around love or intimacy. It's centered around control. She has to be at the center of a universe that no longer revolves around her. And she can't bear that Christine and Janelle left it behind. Not in anger, but in peace. Because if loyalty were a function of how much one gave up, Robyn's column would be blank. Kody said it himself once. He requires a lot of attention. And in that moment, he revealed more than he intended. Not just in terms of his own ego, but in terms of the very foundation of the life he built. Polygamy wasn't a religious calling. It was an act. And the wives? Just supporting cast. For years, he was the son, and had 4 various households revolving around him. The more drama he managed, the more important he felt. All the arguing, all the changing of hearts, all the so-called family reunions, it was all an act. And Kody was directing the play like a man intoxicated with power. But that play only functioned as long as the women still believed that their sacrifices were worth it, as long as they confused silence with strength and submission with love. Yet when they finally did find their voices and began to move on, something in Kody snapped. Not only was he losing his wives, he was losing the audience that confirmed him. And for someone so addicted to attention, that loss was intolerable. So he lashed out. He blamed the women, said they had betrayed him, twisted the story to protect the image he had built. But the reality was far simpler. He couldn't handle not being the center center of their worlds anymore. His love was always conditional. He offered affection when he was adored. He offered anger when he was challenged. And he withheld when he was disobeyed. When Janelle challenged his authority, in his head it wasn't simply a disagreement, it was an uprising. To Kody, compliance was loyalty, and autonomy, that was betrayal. When one of his wives wouldn't return to his orbit, he didn't see it as their growth, but as personal rejection. Even now, with Robyn being the only remaining wife, he's still not at peace. He's agitated, discontented, coming apart at the seam, because Kody never actually wanted a family. He wanted to be the center. And now, with the lights fading and the cameras capturing more silence than smiles, he's forced to sit in a reality he never anticipated. No one's watching anymore. There was a moment when it seemed like Robyn had won, the last wife standing, the legal wife, the one who had both the marriage certificate and Kody's undivided attention. She had the dream home, the special access, and what appeared to be victory. But that victory is starting to feel excruciatingly empty. For what does it avail a woman to attain the sole survivor title when all the others voted with their feet? Robyn didn't survive the others. She out-altituded them. And now she's been left with not a thriving family, but a man unraveling under the stress of his own design. The electricity in their house no longer feels tender, romantic. It's heavy, weary. The joy she used to pretend now tangos with exhaustion. Robyn rambles on and on about what she wants, her hopes, her dream of the ideal plural existence she might have had. But nothing she says reflects what's actually remaining. She's clinging to a fantasy built on control, a house full of kids who never disobey her, a husband who bows to her emotions, and sister wives who used to orbit her like planets. That fantasy died the day Christine walked out. And when Janelle followed suit, it was not just a rejection of Kody. It was a rejection of everything Robyn had come to represent. She says now that she feels left out, unloved, excluded. But those are the results of decades of playing the victim and manipulating behind the scenes. When it was her turn to hug the other, she didn't. When she had the opportunity to lead with kindness, she led with resentment instead. And now, when the holidays roll around, and she's there constructing stiff, awkward gatherings out of what remains of a large, boisterous family, it hits. This is where control without compassion gets you. Compliance without connection. Silence without peace. What Robyn won't face is this. Her dream required everyone else to give up something. Their freedom, their children, their happiness. And since they've chosen those things over her definition of family, all that remains is Kody, and whichever iteration of him is still standing. He is no longer the prize she fought to possess. It wasn't betrayal that tore this family apart. It was denial. Kody wouldn't own up to how far he'd fallen from the man his wives once knew. And Robyn, instead of making him aware of that, made excuses. Together, they rewritten the history in real time, rebranding neglect as fairness, favoritism as faith, and control as care. But the children weren't fooled. The congregation wasn't fooled. And soon, neither were the wives. When Isabel went into surgery and Kody didn't show up, it wasn't poor planning. It was clarity. His priorities weren't scattered. They were just elsewhere. And they didn't include the children who no longer fed his ego. Christine never forgot that moment. Neither did Janelle. To them, it confirmed what they had always suspected, but could not quite bring themselves to believe. Kody's love was never reciprocal. It was not even genuine. It was always performative, contingent upon proximity, flattery, and obedience. And when his children no longer performed for the image he was trying to present, he merely disposed of them quietly. It was not just emotional abandonment, it was abandoning their reputation. He let their milestones pass without comment. And then he appeared on camera, claiming the role of father as if it was his due, when he hadn't in years. And Robyn, she didn't just sit back, she worsened things. Instead of holding Kody's feet to the fire, she shielded him. She wrapped each failure in excuse, playing the always loyal partner in a war nobody else signed up to fight. When Mary was slowly phased out, Robyn hailed it as divine intervention. When Christine left, she cried, not for Christine's suffering, but for the story she could no longer control. And when Janelle gained her voice and finally spoke up for herself, Robyn was stuck, arms folded across her chest, mouth shut, too bitter to commiserate, too proud to mourn. They never expected the three women all to walk out. They never expected the children to talk, that the fans would start questioning, that even TLC would shift its gaze. But this is what happens when truth finally is able to seep through the cracks. The series did not destroy the family. It exposed what had already been destroyed a long time ago. And the more Kody and Robyn tried to choreograph the ending, the clearer it was. They were never heroes of the tale, just the last two fumbling along trying to pretend the tale wasn't already over. Robyn didn't lose her her family in one explosion. She lost it gradually through backhanded judgments, subtle insinuations, and whenever she placed herself beyond the rules she put others under. She presents herself as abused, a victim of others' decisions. But her role wasn't passive. While Christine, Janelle, and even Mary bent themselves to try to make plural marriage work, Robyn established her own rule, ones that looked like unity on the outside, but were rooted in exclusion and veiled domination. She claimed she was all about plural family living, but never at any time urged Kody to remarry, never showed hospitality to a potential new wife, never truly accepted the concept of sharing her husband, though it was the precept at the core of their religion. Robyn knew nothing of sisterhood. She wanted to be in control. She never wanted to make amends. She wanted to be the one standing alone when the others admitted defeat. And now that the moment has come, she's not the dewy-eyed new wife anymore with expectation. She's the one clinging to a version of the dream that is gone. She's not young enough to be sought out as new sister wives. She's not respected enough to be commanded. And she's not radiant enough anymore to be evoked for sympathy. All that is left is a woman caught by her own ambition, sitting with the man she tried to make hers, only to realize he never was alone. The illusion she sold to herself and the viewer is shattered into disconnected scenes, forced grins, and conversation she heavy with the unsaid. She once cried about being left out, but now the power to invite in others is hers, and nobody's taking it, because not having control over something is distinct from being attached to it, and winning when everybody else loses doesn't necessarily imply you won. Kody never thought about living a life where nobody required him. His word had never been questioned for years. As the head of the family, his position had emphasized in each decision, each created confession, each stepped out plan from town to town. But that illusion was broken the day his wives quit asking permission and started asking for an explanation. What previously had been offered as leadership started to look more like domination. And now, with 3 wives gone and only Robyn left, Kody is no longer the head of a successful dynasty. He's just a man in the ruins, asking himself how the power he controlled so completely escaped right from his grasp. He equated dominance with love, thought rules equaled respect, and equated obedience with peace. All he truly built was a building so fragile, held together by guilt, religious coercion, and emotional remoteness. And when Christine finally said no, when Janelle got up and walked out, and when Mary ended the pursuit, it all came tumbling down. The decisions he made with so much certainty then now look reactive, rash, even childish. Moving the family to Flagstaff was not leadership. It was ego, a power grab, a grasp for significance, a do-over no one asked for. And in his effort to reassert dominance, he drove away the only individuals who actually gave his life meaning. Kody's breakdown isn't flashy. It's subtle, it's gradual, and it's heartbreakingly apparent. A man who once demanded blind obedience now flinches at the mere sight of truth. His confessions are laced with unspoken anger and pieces of half-liar. He sets himself up to be the one who was left behind. How convenient. But in the end, it wasn't that Robyn lost her family. She lost the illusion that she ever had one. Years, she clung to a fantasy built not on partnership, but on possession. She called it sisterhood, but was spying, and she called it love, but was controlling. And now, the facade stripped away, only with silence and the devastation of her own decisions, Robyn is faced with the one thing she's been avoiding for the past decade. Connection cannot be forged. Not with the other wives, not with the children, and certainly not with a husband who was never wired for the love he consistently claimed to provide. And yet even today, Robyn remains hopeful. That somehow Christine will return, that Janelle will change her mind, that Mary will recall decades of emotional starvation. She still dreams of that porch fantasy, sitting side by side in old age, laughing and recalling, as though all in between wasn't a calculated, intentional dismantling of trust. But that dream is far, far back in the past. Everybody else knows it. Everybody but her. Kody, on the other hand, has devolved into an imitation of the man he once pretended to be. Wherever there was once a center to every room, every altercation, every story, now he floats through situations with glassy eyes and shallow alibis. Even the love he still shows to Robyn rings hollow, like he's read the line too many times to ever really buy it. There's no grand romance now, just a subdued recognition of a world careening out from them. Now, this isn't just a breakup story. It's a cautionary tale. Because no one rules over a family through terror and holds them at all times. Eventually, the people who are under your control will rise. And when they do, they'll throw the door wide enough for the world to know who you truly were behind doors. A house full of silence. A marriage full of regret. A life full of unanswered questions. Questions that neither of them are prepared to cope with anymore. In the meantime, Christine is thriving in the new life. Janelle has found her voice. Mary, finally, is choosing herself. And Robyn and Kody, they're all that remain to each other. Not out of love, but because everyone else departed. That is not together. That is the aftermath. So now, as the credits crawl toward this once great epic's finish, there is no twist of destiny, no one coming back together in the heart. Just two people sitting among what they've left behind, still attempting to reason themselves into thinking that any of it was worthwhile. This wasn't merely about divorce. It was the slow public erosion of power, loyalty, and illusion. Robyn wanted to be in charge. Kody needed to be constantly centered. And eventually, they lost everything. The wives, the kids, and the story. They thought clinging together meant they'd won, but really, it just served to illustrate this. Nobody else wanted to play anymore. So, if there is a season 20, it will not be about repairing. It'll be about exposure. Watching Kody and Robyn face their own reflection and endure the silence that comes when no one's clapping anymore. I'm Anya, and this is Reality Recap, where the truth never blinks and the facade never fools us. Subscribe, like, and stay locked in.